There are some vehicles in RoadCraft that almost nobody use. Most of the people don't purchase these vehicles, or even if they purchase them, most of the time those vehicles are going to be in the garage. Now let's see which vehicles are collecting dust all the time and why. The first vehicle of this list is the Vostok ETV89 compact crane. Like other compact cranes, the Vostok ETV89 is just not that useful, because if I'm going to drive a vehicle from point A to B just for its crane, I'm going to use a heavy crane. That heavy crane is better in every single possible way. But one big problem of this vehicle is the fact that the crane doesn't rotate 360 degrees. It's more like 185 degrees. So when you want to use this crane for picking up debris or cargo and put them on your vehicle, things are just harder for no reason compared to other cranes. That makes the Vostok ETV89 just not that useful. But there is one good use I have found for this vehicle. This vehicle is very capable. This is basically a tank that has a crane, and it can go through like mud and sand pretty easily, and you can easily tow any truck that you want. The downside is when you attach your crane to a vehicle, you don't get the towing option. But even without that option, this vehicle is very good for towing other vehicles. Or not just other vehicles that you have, even the half-destroyed vehicles that you can find around the map. For that, this vehicle is not that bad, but using it as a crane is just not a good idea, and that's why I think most of the people don't use this vehicle. The next vehicle is EPEC LT200 cargo grab crane truck. This vehicle is actually very unique. It's the only tracked vehicle that has a crane and a cargo bed. But the crane and the cargo bed are just not that good. The grab cranes in general are just not as useful as cable cranes in RoadCraft, but this grab crane, because the claw is very small, it's very hard to pick up different cargo. The number of cargoes that you can pick up with this crane is very low. There are just a few items that you can easily pick up with this crane. Other than that, the bed of this truck is not that big, and this truck is very slow. And because of all these reasons, I think this vehicle is not that useful, but it is a very capable truck. Although there is one really good use that I have found with this vehicle, and I think this is the only vehicle in the entire game that can do a good job at this. So you know, in RoadCraft there are different types of rocks. There are rocks that are so big and you cannot move them at all. There are some rocks that are big but you can move them, and for those rocks usually you're going to use a cable crane. But there are some rocks that are not that big and you cannot use a cable crane for picking them up. There is just no attach point for these rocks. And pushing these rocks to the side of the road or something like that with a dozer is not always the best idea, because still the rocks are going to be there and they are going to ruin the view. This is when this truck comes in real handy. With the crane of this truck, you can easily pick up all those rocks, put them on the bed of this vehicle, and drop those rocks wherever you want. And here is a quick tip. If you have many rocks on the bed of this vehicle and you're done with that area, you don't want to use this truck anymore in that area, you don't need to pick up those rocks one by one and drop them on the ground. Just recover or retain this vehicle and all the rocks are going to be in that area where your truck was. Unloading all those rocks in this way is just way faster. The next vehicle is the Kronenwerk L34 log grabber loader. Now, this vehicle might be the most useless vehicle in the entire game. You know, I really don't see a good reason to use this vehicle. Using this vehicle is very difficult, and using a normal cable crane or a grab crane is just way better and easier. And the things that you can pick up with this vehicle are not that many. There are some logs, pipes, steel beams, or maybe you can pick up some of those destroyed cars around the map, and that should be it. But just picking up those cargoes and putting them on a truck with this vehicle is just difficult. I personally would rather to use a crane than this. The next vehicle is EPEC TC305 tracked heavy grab crane. As I've already said, grab cranes are just not as useful as the cable cranes, and using a cable crane is better and easier. The biggest problem of this vehicle is this exact model has another version that has a cable crane, and this one, in my opinion, loses to that one in every possible way. So there is just no reason to use this one instead of that cable crane variant. Now, other than that, this vehicle is very capable, but it's very slow. Now, before I get to the last two, I want to mention a vehicle that is useless and useful based on what you have done in that map. The Wayfarer ST7050 semi-truck. So this vehicle is actually very good for delivering a lot of different cargoes. But the problem is you can only use this vehicle if you already have a very good and nice road network. If you have a good and nice road network, this is a very good vehicle to use. If you don't have access to a nice road network, probably you cannot use this vehicle at all. Now, the last two are a bit different because it's not just one vehicle, it's a type of vehicles. The first one is the Stump mulchers. Stump mulchers are cool vehicles that you can use to get rid of stumps. But the problem is, almost every single vehicle in this game with enough power can get rid of the stumps easily. A vehicle like Aramatsu Bowhead can get rid of even big stumps very easily. So you don't need to drive one of these stump mulchers across the map just to get rid of a couple of stumps. Some vehicle like Aramatsu Bowhead can do it very easily, and so many other vehicles can do it too. So it's kind of hard to find a good use for stump mulchers when other vehicles can do their job as good as those vehicles. But there is one good use for these vehicles. In some maps, you can find these very big trees. Sometimes they are blocking the road or half of the road and you cannot do anything to them. These are not the type of trees that if you drive over them, they are going to break. Now, this is where stump mulchers shine. No other vehicle can get rid of these trees, but stump mulchers can easily delete them from the map. If one of these big trees were on the road and bothering you, use a stump mulcher, get rid of it. This is the only thing that makes the stump mulchers somewhat useful, but you cannot really find these trees in many maps. And the last vehicles are log grabber loaders. To be honest, I don't know why would someone use these vehicles instead of a normal cable crane vehicle or just a log forwarder. If you want to use a vehicle like the log grabber loaders, log forwarders are just a way better option. Not only you can easily pick up the logs, you have a place to put them on the truck. You don't need to bring another truck with a bed to put the logs on that vehicle. So the log grabber loaders are just the type of vehicle that I really don't know what should I do with them. If I want to pick up logs, I either use a log forwarder or a normal cable crane. And that's it for today's video. I see you in the next one.